I'm not excited about how much reading I've done on this subject, but it's for some reason it's been really fascinating. And so to intro this topic, I'll start it with a question. HD, when you go to the bathroom,
It's not a good way to start a question.
are you sitting or standing?
Perhaps it depends.
Well, when you do number one, do you
Do I
sit
sit?
or do you stand?
This almost feels like a trick question because I don't know why anyone would choose to sit, because obviously when you sit, you're not able to fully release the tank.
Dude, I'm a sitter. I've always sat.
Bro.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you end up with like a quarter tank still in there.
No. No. So I've been doing tons of reading about this recently. Apparently, like the US, the men in the US stand more than like any other country when they do number one.
Well, we've gotten a lot wrong, but I think we got this one right.
No. I think this is another thing we're getting wrong. Like, think about it. When you're standing and you're letting the waterfall flow, man, there's so many things bouncing out of that lake that you just gotta cover.
Bro, it's the same thing is true when you're sitting. Are you saying because it's a shorter distance to travel, there's less
No, because
sprayage?
you've got a block from the entrance. Okay, listen to this. In Germany, 40% of men sit. 10% sit in the United States as of like June of 2023.
Well, think about, why would you want to expose your butt cheeks to so much potential germ if
It's
unnecessary?
going on someone's butt cheeks if you think about it. Like, if you're standing and you let loose and it sprays out onto the toilet seat, the next person is sitting on that. Like, it's going to be exposed to whoever
Well,
is
not
the
if you
next
put the
patron.
seat up. I mean, this just seems like
I would love to see a statistic of how many people actually put the seat up.
That's
Because
fair.
let's be
That's
real.
fair.
Let's be real.
Yeah, if you're keeping
You
the seat
don't.
down, then I agree. If you're keeping the seat down, you better sit your butt down and you better go from that position. But if you're going to put the seat up and you're going to really go through that process, then I
Dude,
think it's better to stand.
the amount of particles that go into the air just by flushing while you're standing off of the toilet is crazy. Like, fecal matter can get on like toothbrushes if your toothbrush is on the counter and you flush and you're not sitting while you're flushing. Like, you sitting, like your butt is
Wait.
basically taking one for the team. So
Are you telling me that you stay seated while you flush?
yes,
Oh my God.
yes, or I
All right, I'm
close
glad
the seat,
we're gonna
or I
have to
close the
introduce
seat.
the topic pretty quickly because we're clearly in conflict here. I can't even believe that this is a real thing for you, Gals.
No, so like I either stay seated or I close the cover. But most toilets don't have
Right.
covers nowadays. So
Well,
like you got to take one for the team. Look,
deep relationships.
so the reason I bring this up is because there was a recent report that came out that more young men are sitting than standing, and it's
Like
solely
under
based
the
off.
age of 5? Like young?
No. Like younger than our generation, but older than 5. But no, like you gotta cover. Like, if anything, so much splashes up. You gotta find some way to cover.
Sounds like we may be on to a potential product invention here, Cubs. I guess that's what those
What would
things in
that
the
product
urinals are.
be? Like a
The
mesh over the
anti-splash.
toilet seat?
Well, in the urinals, they have the anti-splash.
Like, so do you think it's because Germany has different designed toilets? I've never been to Germany, but I'd imagine they're very similar. Like, think about a urinal, right? A urinal, the way it flushes everything down. You're not like splashing anything out to the ether. Like a
Right.
regular toilet, if you pee into a regular toilet, it's splashing back up. Like it's coming out. Like you should see some of these like heat maps or whatever that people do of what happens after you stand.
You're telling me you're looking at heat maps now. You've really got I gotta
Dude,
pull you out of this. I
dude,
gotta pull you out of this. We gotta get to the subject matter here because you've gone way too deep.
I've been reading a lot about it, and I wanted to clear the air and see where you stood on this. You take me as someone who's a sitter, and like I'm a sitter and I'm proud of it.
If I'm gonna be honest, my preferred method of urination would be to be outside
Well, let's be
because
real. Yes, the real solution to pollution is dilution. So like if you're at a lake or a river, like that's the best spot.
my thing is like, why even be Homo erectus if we're just gonna get on all fours to go to the bathroom?
Okay, we can agree to disagree on this. Trees or rocks?
Trees for sure.
Why are you peeing on trees? Deer are going to come and bite that bark off. You got to pee on a rock.
You're right. I do sometimes feel bad because I'm not sure. I mean, if I'm really hydrated, I'll water the roots, but
Oh my God.
otherwise the rocks,
No, because deer will come along and like smell the salt that's in your whatever and start gnawing at the tree and killing it. Whereas if you pee on a rock, the rock's not going anywhere.
I would really like to hear from some audience members here on just this whole conversation. If you'd like to chime in, we'd really appreciate it because someone needs to set McKenzie straight here.
No, no, no,
He's
no,
come up
no.
with a lot
No, no,
of
no, no, no,
theories
no.
that are a
This
little
is
bit out
not a
there.
theory, dude.
Well,
This is not a theory.
this has got to be one of those YouTube rabbit hole.
No, no, this isn't the JFK situation. This is
It's not.
different. This is
Just
totally
speaking of
different.
that, that's been blowing my mind. That whole
Oh, dude. Yeah, that's a whole nother episode.
we can't do
We
it right now.
can't we
We
can't
can't
go
do
into
it.
conspiracy right now.
All right, we got to talk about conflict, man, because this is a real one, and I know it's a great one because all of us experience it. Uh, it doesn't take much research into these rabbit holes to realize that there is nothing that impacts human happiness like relationships. And I know there's been studies out of Harvard and other places that continue to confirm that this conversation around relationships is the most important thing when it comes to our health and human wholeness. Um, on earth at least. And uh, I think that one of the things that gets shoved in there is like we're constantly, especially the people we're closest to, we're constantly at odds with to some degree. Sometimes small like bathroom conversations, and other times that conflict can get really real. So I'm excited to flush out some ideas, some strategies with you, Calbs, on how do we navigate relationships better? How do we navigate conflict, especially tough relationships with people we really love and sometimes hate to love? And yeah, see what we can learn through the process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to note that the way we just navigated that conflict at the beginning of the episode is probably not textbook as to how you should navigate a disagreement. But
We'll run it back at the end just
yeah,
to
we
kind
move
of
on. Yeah, we'll have a
based on
more
what we've learned through
compassionate.
this conversation. Like based on what you said, McKenzie, this makes me feel like
Yeah.
this, and so yeah,
Take
all the
accountability.
tools that
Take accountability, HD, that you're wrong about this and that I'm right. I mean, I think that's the most important element of this. No.
All right, what have you been thinking on as it relates to this conversation? What's something that you want to bring to the table?
So I'd love to first talk about where this really comes up in, especially with men, which is this sense of avoiding conflict. I went to a wedding a couple years ago, and my wife and we were engaged at the time. And my wife specifically like hates the term happy wife, happy life. She can't stand it. And we can get into that as to why, but we were at this wedding and they just kept on drilling into this guy. Remember, happy wife, happy life. And they almost like set him up to this structure where it's like always cave to what your wife wants. Always bend your beliefs to accommodate hers and just make sure she's happy because that'll make your life better. And I think that is like such a backwards way to go about navigating your relationship. And I think that kind of attitude is what causes men to find themselves avoiding conflict and avoiding having difficult conversations with their partners. I think men avoid conversations with everyone, but I definitely think it is prevalent amongst their partners. And I'd love to hear from you as to like, where do you see yourself avoiding conflict and what does that look like to you?
Mm. Yeah, I think it's especially with romantic partners because it can feel like such a grind sometimes. Sometimes it's light and it's easy, and other times it can feel heavy and hard conversations can be exhausting. I've found myself at times, like if me and my girlfriend have been going through like a hard week, but then that next week we really need to talk about something again that's tough, but it feels light. Like I almost just want to keep it light. Like while it feels good, I just want to keep letting it feel good. But then 1 week turns to 2 weeks and 3 weeks, and I'm continuing to just try to keep it feeling good as opposed to actually addressing what's going to make it be great long run. And I think that's been the thing for me um, is this sense, and we see it all over the culture. I feel it in my own life sometimes too. This desire for instant gratification. We've talked about this on previous podcasts. In relationships, a lot of times that can look like, wow, this feels really good right now. Like we're happy, we're light, we're not fighting. So this is good. Um, but underlying, there's something I know that I need to bring to the surface, whether it's something I haven't shared, a question I need to ask, or a tough conversation we need to have. Um, that's going to confront that gratification of feeling good in that moment. Um, and so can I be okay without the instant gratification and be a little bit more willing to invest in the long-term health and foundation of that? Um, but I mean, it's hard. It's hard to bring up hard conversations. Uh, and I know that some of us have built into our identity, like I suck at having hard conversations. And I just want to say first off, like that's a dangerous place to be because part of life is hard conversations because part of life is relationships and those are hard. Um, so that's something for me that I've had to catch myself in is don't just because it feels good right now doesn't mean it can't be better. And if there's something I feel like I need to share, it makes the relationship stronger to choose to share it um, than trying to sit in whatever may feel good in the moment.
Yeah. When I hear like I'm really bad at conflict or I just don't want to engage in a fight with my partner or whatever, what I hear is I'm running to comfort.
Mm,
And I think, there's so many elements of our body and our mind where we tend to uh, run to the short term solution, thinking that that's the long term solution.
mm,
And I think that's part of the problem. I also think there's like a core issue with men navigating their relationships in general and what they're trying to get out of their relationships that's causing this neglect to have difficult conversations. I hear a lot of guys a lot of times in men's groups and in one-on-one sessions um, say a couple of common phrases, and those common phrases are like rooted around this idea of I just want to keep the peace. I'm just looking to keep the peace,
mm-hmm. That's
right?
good. Yeah.
And I often go into, well, what are you trying to get out of this relationship? And what I've essentially boiled it down to is three things. Men are looking to be desired, men are looking to be believed in, and men are looking to be respected. And I think a lot of men look for the surface level short term solution for those. And the thinking tends to be, well, if I just agree with her, she's going to desire me more. If I just, um, if I just disengage and say, "Yep, you're right," she's going to have more respect for me. And I think it couldn't be more backwards. This line of thinking of like I'm just going to keep the peace because then my needs are going to be met is a backwards way of viewing this whole situation. I think a lot of women, not to speak on behalf of women, but I definitely think a lot of women are initially attracted to a man because of the things that make them unique, because of the things that make them interesting. And when we fall into a relationship, especially when we fall hard into a relationship, we find ourselves yearning for those three things, but we're willing to give up all of our personal empowerment and all of our personal identity in exchange for trying to get those three needs met, being respected, desired, and believed in. And I think that's where I find the root of the problem, for me, and what I've seen from a lot of guys, and what leads to a lot of very toxic relationships.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm just sitting with those three. So the three you said was
Men want to be
desired,
desired,
respected,
respected, and believed in.
believed in. Yeah, the believed in one's an interesting one. I haven't really spent too much time thinking about, um, but I think
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And I used to always say men wanted to be respected and desired, but I've added that third one in recent months because there are so many instances where a guy wants to go off and do a career change, or a guy wants to go off and explore a new hobby or an interest. And they want nothing more in that moment than their wife saying, I believe in you. Like, you can
Yeah,
do it. You can get there.
it's so true,
Um,
man. It's so true.
and it just, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen because needs weren't expressed at the beginning of the relationship and aren't maintained throughout the relationship. It's all about trying to keep the peace.
Hmm. Yeah. So what happens in that place? Because that one I think really connects to me as a risk taker, someone who has started, is continuing to start my own business and take risks, is a dreamer, is constantly wanting to create new things and step off the ledge and not be sure where I'm going to land. Hope I have a parachute that works, and I've really needed a partner that, believes in me. I think that that's been a core thing, helping give me some language here. And so, if that's something that a guy may be feeling, is, gosh, it's so frustrating. I feel like I have these great ideas, these things I want to do. Um, I, but I just feel like my partner isn't believing in me. And what would you recommend? How should they navigate that?
Let your partner in. Like, letting your partner into the decision making process. There are so many guys who are wrestling with a decision and they choose to keep their partner out of that process because they assume that that partner is going to say no, that partner is going to disagree with their thought logic, that partner is going to disagree with the outcome. But this is a part of relationships that I think a lot of people struggle with, which is when you're getting into a relationship with someone, you have to let them in on everything. You become one. Your decisions affect them, their decisions affect you. And trust starts in a proactive way, not a reactive way. And that trust is established by saying, hey, I've been thinking about this. I'd love to get your opinion on it. Here's what I'm wrestling with. Here are the things that are holding me back. What should I do? Asking them those questions of before you reach the decision is such a great way to gain that
Hmm.
trust.
That's so
And
good. So good, man.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys come to their wife with a decision
Hmm.
rather than bringing them in on the decision. So that's
Yeah.
how you prevent it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's really good. And I think rooted in there is some sense of like mind reading that I think we do, of like, I know how she's going to react. So I'm just not even going to bring it to her. One, I know, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this can also agree that there's been a lot of times in my life I thought I knew, and then the reaction was completely different than what I thought it would be, which humbles me to realize like I'm really only in control of my own story, and I can't write other people's stories for them or dream up what's happening in their head. And that's been a big thing in my relationship is, and I think it extends to our guy relationships as well, of like, wow, what happens when we bring people into the process? And hey, this is what I'm dreaming about. This is what I'm thinking about. This is why I'm feeling unsettled in my current job, and and I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And the likelihood for them to partner with you in that and be like, I'm with you. Like, if you need to make a change, if this is how you feel, then let's do this together. Right? What is that buy-in? How does that feel different than, hey, we need to move to this place. I'm starting this business, and like, I need you to support me. It's just a totally different energy. Once it's together, a unity. We're doing this together. We're moving in conjunction and unity. And then the other is, hey, get behind me. Like, I'm leading. I'm
Yeah.
going. And perhaps there's just a sense, especially as it is a tendency. It doesn't always have to be this way, but where men take some leadership in relationships or desire to be leaders, and thinking that leadership means directing, like, you do this, we're doing this, I'm going this way, you're going this way. And I mean, to me, that's poor leadership. Do you want to be under that leadership? I know I don't.
That's a
Like, I want to
boss.
be, and I've heard it described as the clipboard versus the towel leader. The clipboard leader is directing people where to go and checking the box if you hit it or you did that. Nope, McKenzie didn't get that done. X check. Versus the towel who comes up and is like, man, McKenzie, how you doing, man? Can I support you? Like, um, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think about this? And it's much more of an intimate, collective approach. So that's really helpful for me, and I hope
Yeah.
for some people listening.
It's hard too because um, Dr. Glover has this great quote where she says, "Seeking women's approval creates rage towards women." And I think it comes with this idea that uh, there's a lot of guys out there who choose to avoid conflict, and they don't own that. They don't own that they are avoiding conflict with their partner. Rather, they blame their partner for the reason as to why they're avoiding that conflict. When really, their decision to avoid is the thing that's causing them to continue to spiral that relationship to the sense of not being able to trust one another. Um, so I think there's an element of that, and it creates this narrative in your head. I've heard it a lot where guys go, "Oh, she's just so controlling. She's so angry. She's a steamroller. She's just like my mom." I hear that a ton. She's just like my mom. She acts like my mom, and there's no way to please her. So I'm just going to tune her out. I'm going to avoid any conflict with her. And I think when that happens, you are shoving the blame onto them for your inability to create a, a difficult or to have a difficult conversation.
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and those assumptions are what's causing those assumptions to continue to be true in your relationship.
Hmm.
Like, I hear a lot of guys say that, but then they won't go and have a conversation about to their wife about, hey, sometimes when you're saying this, I feel as though I'm being attacked like how my mother used to attack me when I was younger.
Hmm.
um, that's just for some reason not in the cards. And so
Right.
I think a lot of it is just owning that you're avoiding this conversation and try to find a motivating factor that gets you out of that and say, okay, I'm going to have this conversation so that I'm not thinking this in my head anymore.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, that's really good, man. Because I do feel like there's part of it. We've touched on the part of like bringing up the conversation when you have something tough to talk about. And then I think the other question that I'd reflect on, and I'd encourage, listeners to reflect on, is how am I creating the space for others to bring up that conversation, or to give me feedback? And this is an area that I've really had to exercise growth that I thought I was good at. And I'm humbling myself to realize I really need to work on is not being offendable, or not immediately, like, when my partner or a guy friend gives me feedback, that I'm on my toes, ready to fight back or defend myself in some way, versus actually really being a space that, one, someone feels comfortable sharing how they feel like I could better support them or how I could be a better partner or friend. Um, and that I'm really going to be willing to make a change based on what they share, and that doesn't have to become a big blown up fight. And the amount of fights that I've had with my girlfriend that really didn't need to be fights. It was just her trying to express something, and I, and me taking it the wrong way or feeling like I needed to defend it. All she wanted to be was heard. And now we're in a big fight, and I'm talking about her tone and the way she approached it, right? And now we're not even talking about where this started. And I think that I mean I hope I'm not alone in that. I don't think I am. Um, but that piece is really big. How do we not defend ourselves when that temptation arises to defend? What are some tools, some strategies we can use to keep ourselves regulated?
Mm. There's a couple things in there that you've kind of already touched on, one of which is creating the right space. There is nothing wrong with saying, let's talk about this at a different time. And if you do bring that up and you say that, following through on that is huge. Finding that space to where you're not flooded with these emotions is crucial. As men, we've grown up defending our masculinity. We've grown up defending our manhood to everyone around us. So when our partner says something that may feel like an attack or may feel like something that makes us appear weak, we spring on it, right? We
Mm-hmm.
get super animated when that happens. And so part of this is about establishing that space with your partner in which you can feel like a man even after opening up that vulnerability with them. Um, because as soon as you feel like your manhood is threatened and you have to defend it, you won't see clearly anymore in that conversation. So I have found a couple things work really well for a lot of different guys, including myself. One of which is removing you should, you need out of the equation. You should be doing that. I should be doing this. You need to be doing that. I need to be doing this. It's not productive. It never will be productive. And it's not your place to command someone to do something. So, completely taking accountability in every response is the goal. So, what that looks like is HD, when you said this, I felt this way. And always tying it back to how you're feeling, what you're thinking, rather than saying, and I know you're thinking this, or you should be doing that. Um, Holding yourself accountable throughout the entire conversation is extremely productive. And it keeps it going in the right direction. And it keeps it non confrontational in the sense of I'm not accusing her of anything, and I'm not expecting her to do anything out of what I'm saying. I'm just simply stating my truth, which is I feel hurt, I feel vilified, I feel attacked. Um, and so that's one thing that I have found very productive is when you're able to take accountability. The second thing is to remove blame from the equation. Blame is a defense mechanism. Blame is used to victimize yourself in a situation. They are this, or they're doing this, and therefore I'm the victim of the situation. I have no defense. There's nothing I did wrong. You're removing the pressure off of yourself rather than sitting there and taking accountability on what hurts you. Um, and so I think removing blame and taking accountability are the two ways you can really be productive in these conversations.
Hmm.
Um, it's amazing how many guys rush to blame, rush to assume uh, in their partner. They believe their partner is this reflexive human. Every situation has the same outcome. And that's because of our poor way of approaching these conversations.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think some part of it too is, people process differently in these conversations. And that's something that's helpful for me to keep in mind. I'm a bit more of a processor than my girlfriend. She wants to immediately solve everything. And one thing I've had to do is create more space for myself. Like if she says something and my response is, no, she's wrong, like, let me tell you why you're wrong. I've really had to learn how to say, I really appreciate you sharing that. I hear that. I'm going to sit with that. Like, and I actually will. Like, I will sit with what she's saying. Oftentimes, she This is amazing. We're going to be better on the other end of this. We're actually going to have a
Yeah.
stronger relationship because we decided to have this conversation.
There's a great quote that I always go back to, and I think I got it from a book called Letting Go by David Hawkins. And the quote is, um, if we aren't honest with ourselves, we don't know ourselves. Thus, we allow others to influence our decisions. And I think for a lot of men, and for myself especially, that resonates with when I'm choosing not to explore why I'm acting a certain way. Um, I'm allowing other people who are yearning to control their environment and control me to have an influence that's beyond a healthy influence. And I think what makes conflict healthy is if the intention is to nurture each other in our journey. Anything south of nurturing is not a productive conflict. My approach to conflict should be I want to find a way to connect with my partner on a deeper level. And my partner should want to try to connect to me on a deeper level, even in a topic in which we disagree. Where can we find that connection in a disagreement? Where can we nurture her needs and my needs in the conflict? And that really has always recently been at the forefront when I have a disagreement with my wife, which is, am I being nurturing right now? Am I getting animated because of what she's doing or because of some work that I haven't done? And when I start asking myself those questions and I start being more accountable, I find that the temperature of the conversation drops
Hmm.
and it's extremely productive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like part of it, and what I'm hearing you say is, it's kind of the core to the growth mindset. I think if you were to ask most guys, they'd say, "Yeah, I have a growth mindset, or I want to have a growth mindset." But relationally, I think one of the things that looks like, or one of the ways that shows up, is when conflict arises, the tendency to blame someone else or blame the other person. Growth mindset, I believe, asks us to every single time look at, how could I have been better in this situation? How can I be better? Control what I can control, which is me. So even if I want to blame McKenzie for a fight we're having, it's all him. Like, I'm completely convinced it's all his fault. Can I still sit there and ask, how could I have been better in that situation? And to me, that's where just the deep discovery comes, realizing, wow, there actually was something that I said to him that, dang, wow, I'm not really not showing up well for him as a friend right now. Like, I need to look at this again. And I think that for me has been, one of the practices I've tried to employ around this is, every temptation to blame someone else, can I flip that back on myself? How could I have been better?
Yeah, 100%. And I find a lot of times before I went on my journey and started facilitating different men's groups and coaching and stuff that um, whenever my inner voice was validated, I would get angry.
Mm,
Whenever someone spoke to something about myself that I've been secretly criticizing within my inner voice, I'd lash out in anger. And uh, I find that to be really telling as to what's crying out inside in terms of something that I have to do work on. If there's one thing we can guarantee is that our partner is going to spot our flaws. Every person can relate to this sense of, I thought I was great until I got a partner and we started disagreeing. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm a lot more broken than I thought I was.
mm.
Um,
Yeah,
Actually, I
I've
don't
heard
like
it's
to
a.
say the word broken, bent. I'm a lot more bent than I thought I was.
Mm,
And uh, it's because they're saying the things a lot of the times that my inner voice was telling me all along. And I just refused to listen
mm.
until someone was standing in front of me and telling me the exact same thing.
Oh, that's so good, man. I hope you guys are sitting with that, and connecting to it. I know I do. Intimacy is such a mirror into the places of ourself within ourselves that are hardest for us to love or accept, and it exposes us. But it's so healthy and it's so good. And so in that exposure, there's gonna be tension and friction, uh, and that's part of it. And on the other end of it is greater awareness of self, growth, the ability to love bigger. So I mean, I'm just encouraged by it, even though within the context of these relational disputes, I'm often frustrated and want to beat myself up. And um, yeah, but it makes me really grateful for the people that I'm really close to. Those close relationships that make life meaningful. They're also the ones that sharpen me, that help me grow, that expose me to things that I really need to take a look at. And if I would just say that if you don't feel like your relationships are doing that, they're not sharpening you, then you may need to look at your relationships again. Like, it shouldn't all feel good. That's not the point,
Yeah.
right?
Well, HD, I'll stop you there and ask you a question. Okay, what happens if I'm sitting there and I'm coming across nurturing, I'm coming across accountable, and the person in front of me is doing the opposite thing. The person in front of me is like accusing me of everything. Person in front of me is extremely angry. And you've said several times, like, hey, let's take a break. Let's talk about this another time, or let's find a better time to bring this up. And they're like, no, we need to resolve this right now. What do you do in a situation like that when you're
Mm,
with your partner or you're with a good friend or something?
yeah. Hmm. I've heard it said that the goal, and I often want to think that the goal is always reconciliation, right? For the relationship to succeed and move forward in a great way. I think this shows up a lot in family, right? We always want to make it right. But the goal really is peace, internal peace. And part of that is realizing that I only control what I control, right? It's hard to set boundaries. It's one of the hardest aspects of love is creating boundaries, especially with people we deeply care about. And it's sometimes what's required for us to maintain the internal peace. And only from that place of peace can a relationship truly be reconciled. And so I would just say that if you really feel like you're doing everything you can and you have found your peace within it and it continues to not be a healthy relationship, then chances are you either need to consider drawing a boundary in that relationship or recognizing that it may not be the right relationship for you. Um, but make sure that whatever decision you make is coming from a flat footed place of internal peace. You've done the work on yourself and you're at peace, and then you'll know.
Yeah. A lot of times in men's group too, we talk a lot about like why we're so ill equipped to handle conflict. Um, but yet we present this unaffected image of ourselves, or this image of strength and stoicism. And in that pursuit of always trying to be seen as immune to all pain and hardship, I think conflict at times immediately becomes a sense of failure for some guys
Mm,
because it threatens this image of I'm immune to pain, I'm immune to imperfections. I am a strong, confident, perfect guy. And when someone comes along and threatens that, I think it already creates this scenario where we feel attacked before
mm,
we even start.
mhm,
Um, and why is that? Is the bigger question
mhm,
that I think a lot of guys need to battle with. And we talk a lot about it as the big demon, the thing that's causing all of these smaller devils in our life to lash out and to cause more pain. There's a bigger demon for a lot of men that causes them to live a life of coping and a life of anger and defensiveness because they aren't being honest with themselves
mhm,
and saying, I need to acknowledge and I need to work through this big demon that happened when I was younger. Um, a lot of
mm,
times that tends to be abandonment, and all of these little demons are out of a fear of abandonment. But sometimes it can be different. Sometimes it can be sexual assault, harassment. Sometimes it could be just straight up neglect. Sometimes it can be how we were raised.
mm,
But every guy has that big demon that they need to face and
mm,
acknowledge and work through
mm.
in order to be able to start seeing some of these changes in how they approach conflict.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things that we're offering are just remedies, but until we face that big demon, those remedies are only that. They're remedies.
Mhm.
They're not solutions.
Yeah. Yeah. So it feels like, yeah, maybe the better question is Like, what am I? Because it's often fear, right? What am I afraid of deep down? If this were to be true, why is that fearful for me? Even if
Yeah.
I think it's completely not true, just imagine it is for a second. What are you afraid of beneath it? I think that's a great
Guys have
thing
been
to sit
trained
with.
a lot to see their coping mechanisms as stuff to be ashamed of. There's a lot of behavior that men do that come from a place of shame or guilt.
Mhm.
And the most amazing moment for every guy who goes through a men's group or a support group is when they realize that inner thought that I'm having that feels illegal to know, that inner thought that I'm having that feels criminal. There are tons of other guys who are thinking the same thing and feeling the
Mhm.
same thing.
Yeah.
And until a guy can acknowledge and recognize that, they're going to find that these unproductive arguments or temper tantrums or just anger within themselves is just going to continue to flourish because
Mm.
it's the unwillingness to be honest and to recognize that big demon that's so
Mm.
important.
Well said, brother. I got a lot to think on. As always, bro. I appreciate you. Love you,
Yeah,
man.
and just remember through the next week, think about maybe I should start sitting down on the toilet.
All right, we're gonna continue with this conflict offline
I
because
can't wait. For those of you who are wondering, Fletch is out right now. He's doing a lot of different stuff. He just traveled overseas to Italy, and I can't wait to hear more about it on the pod. But he was unable to join us this session, so I'm excited to have him back next week.
and I
Uh,
can guarantee you Fletch stands up when he pees.
no way, dude. No way.
Actually, Fletch and I both have really mastered the art of the bottle. I hate to admit
Oh
that, but
my
it's true.
gosh.
We've
Oh,
had some long road trips where we've really had to get good at the bottle. I would say that it's not
that is
Fletch's strength
so
because
gross.
there's been a couple moments where got a little bit loose and things happen. But
That is so gross.
just
Oh,
remember, Cows, we're Homo erectus for a reason.
I hate that word.
I know
I hate
it's
that.
such a funny word to me, though.
Well, Fletch just came back from Europe, so you never know. He may have joined the 40% of other German men and started sitting.
You never know. All right, brother. Peace.
All right, peace.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. I hope that was valuable and insightful. And before you go, do whatever you got to do today. I want to share something with you that I'm really excited about. On January 21st to 26th, we are hosting Peaceful Warrior, a men's wellness retreat to El Salvador. This is going to be an amazing group immersive experience, digging into a lot of these topics on what it means to be a man and a healthy man in the world today, a whole person. We're going to be moving, we're going to be eating well, we're going to be sharing a lot of meaningful experiences together. There's so much more to say about it, but go do your own research. You can find more at yournextretreat.com. Can't wait to see you guys there, and have a beautiful day. Peace and love.